Well, Allison, Bond and Cantwell truly represents the ABC of West Ham United, and here we are in Cassettari's cafe, which is where much of your football strategy was thought out, I believe. So, Malcolm, how did it all start?
Well, when I came to West Ham, I came from Charlton Athletic. Charlton Athletic had about 8 internationals, and they just won the cup. And one day I said to the trainer, "You know, the training's rubbish." And the next day the manager transferred me to West Ham. So,
Well, it's still rubbish.
no, I came to West Ham, it was just as bad, like, you know. And so we used to come in and we used to talk about football. It would be Malcolm Musgrove, and it'd be Jimmy Andrews and Franco Farrell, and John and Noel, myself. You know, we used to sit down and have a meal and talk about different things, about training and different things. So we gradually got together, and then we used to go back and practice in the afternoon sometimes. We started developing a training program. And then I used to go to Lillishall regular at that time to coaching school and pick up different little tips, and that they were all interested, you know, in the coaching side of the game. And as it happens, they all finished up managers, every one of them. Yeah. But it was only because they were keenness and interest. And also, you know, our training facility was so bad at West Ham, really, really bad. And we used to moan at Ted Benson, you know, about the facility.
I think the big thing really, Mal, was that I think before you come that we all really wanted to do something, like Noel and myself and people like that, but we hadn't anybody who could get hold of us and make us do it. And I think really that's what you did, wasn't it? I mean, I don't think for what I achieved in football, I mean, I played a lot of games and played quite regularly and all that, I don't think I'd have done anything. I have to say, I don't think I'd have done anything if I hadn't have met you. I think I'd have been in and out, and I'd never achieved anything. And I think maybe Noel was, to my eyes, was always going to be a good player, but I think he became a great player because of it. Because without any shadow of doubt, those who didn't want to go on, we left behind, didn't we? We used to go behind at back every afternoon training and things like that, and it was brilliant. I mean, I got to the stage.
There's only one fellow didn't like it, the groundsman.
Well, that's right, but he was but I got to a stage in my career where he was so in control of me that, I mean, on Saturdays you used to get up in the morning, have a cup of tea, then have another one, then have steak and all this business. All of a sudden he said you shouldn't drink tea on Saturdays. So all of one Saturday morning I woke up, my wife said, cup of tea? No. Why did Malcolm said you mustn't drink it? And that was at the stages they got to, and that was how much we took it on. I
think football in the early 50s particularly, people in England thought we were the best in the world and we were never going to be beaten, and our old ideas of just lapping and getting the ball out and being hungry for it, that was the thinking. But then after the Hungarians, and Malcolm became involved with Walter Winterbottom and some of the people who wanted to make progress on the coaching side. So he'd go to Lillishall and come back with lots of bump and lots of ideas. And basically he made us believe all his ideas were right. Maybe all of them weren't right, but we just believed in them. We were just disciples. So we became his, you know, he was the leader. And then we'd come in here and we'd sit down. At the time we had at West Ham we had a little area at the back of the ground to do some running and just shooting practices, which was absolute rubbish. We hadn't then got Grange Farm as a training ground. And we started to look at things like that and think, where are we going to go? And of course, to practice and practice and practice, one had to get better. And Malcolm was the leader of all of us young people. And I've got a picture, as I told you, of a back row in the 50s, in the mid-50s. And 5 of us became first division managers. And I think it was all, you see, we went back training. We didn't have businesses. We didn't have enough money to do anything else other than just train and come in here. And we used to get a voucher from, why Cassettari's became so prominent is that we used to get a voucher from the club for about 2 and 6 pence. Isn't that about right? Yeah, so we used to come in here for our lunch, and this is where it all used to happen.
And how much was the lunch in those days?
Oh, we used to have to make a profit, you see. If you didn't spend the 2 and 6, you could have the rest of it. Some fellas, I think, came in and cashed in and didn't have anything. Didn't have anything to eat, but fellas like John Dick and things like that. There were some characters that, you know, there was no money in the game, but we enjoyed what we were doing. This was most important.
Now then, what was the input of Ted Fenton in those days as the manager? I mean, before you started changing the training routines, etc., what was Ted's input to training and to strategy on the field and so on?
He didn't have any. There was none. You know, we used to he used to say we're going to play 4-4-2 or so. But he used to say this just before we're going out. Like, you know, and like loads of managers. I mean, Jimmy Seed at Charlton was the same. And he went from the 3rd division to the 1st division, and won one FA Cup and lost in another final with Charlton Athletic. You know, and they never used to do anything. I mean, there was a player there. He was brilliant. A fellow called Tommy Brown. He played for Scotland when he was 17, and he never used to train. Like, you know, and I used to be at the front and doing it, and they'd come back here, you little sod, like, you know, and they'd pull me back, and you know, I'd come back in the afternoons and I had to pinch a ball and hide it. And I used to come back and practice with Eddie Vermani and Stuart Leary. They were both kids. They're both younger than me. You know. But nobody wanted to train because I suppose we were on a maximum wage. You know, I said to this Tommy Brown, I said, Tom, you could be a great player if you trained, you know. He said, I'll start training at the beginning of April, he said. 4 weeks before the season finished. And he played brilliantly the last 4 weeks. You know, he got another contract. But that was I mean, it was terrible.
I think Ted was a clever enough man to realise that Malcolm was ambitious and Malcolm would go and to on courses and bring back the material and then we'd practice. So he let him have his head.
But I think you had to give him credit. I mean, he had Wally St Pierre as a scout who, in fairness, got an awful lot of good players to this football club.
Yeah, there were some good kids.
I mean, there were some tremendous players. When you think of them, he got all of them. He got Morrow and Martin Peters and Jeff Hurst and all of them. And then he'd go around looking at the likes of Malcolm and all those sort of people from other football clubs. We did accumulate an awful lot of good players at the football club. I mean, the sad thing about it, until such time as he came and got hold of a few of us, that you just didn't do anything. That was the sad thing. Ted really, what Ted should have done in those days, now when you think back, we should have got himself a first-class coach. Yeah. If he'd have got himself
there wasn't a coach around.
Malcolm really was his coach, wasn't he? When he
there was one coach. There was a man who taught me. A man called Alan Brown.
Yeah.
He was the manager of Burnley.
Yeah.
And I mean, he won the league and he got lost in the cup final with Burnley. I mean, a small little club like that, and that's how good he was.
But it wasn't a coincidence, you see, because Burnley always had, later years when I got involved in it, and I'm sure you must have found this out, is Burnley always had similar ideas to us. Yeah. They played the game similar to us at West Ham, and the players always had the same thoughts and ideas as us if you spoke to them.
John, Burnley were one of the first clubs to have training grounds. They had a training ground which had the same measurements as their actual football pitch. And they got an awful lot of young players from the northeast. We recruited from around here, from Dagenham and places
and
like
Ireland.
that. And Ireland, you know, got a few. But
well, we had a load of Irishmen, didn't we?
We did.
We had to get a few drinkers in the club.
So really, I mean, everybody used to play the WM formation before you transformed everything. So was it a case of just accumulating some good players and telling them to get out there and play? Yeah. Or what? Take us through a build-up to a match before you change things in the dressing room, etc.
Well, we did, like, for instance, we played Blackburn Rovers here in the 5th round of the FA Cup, and we drew 0-0. It was a frosty game, frosty day, wasn't it? We drew 0-0, and we had to go and play them in the replay up there at Blackburn on a Wednesday afternoon. And we went up to Manchester, and we were sitting in the hotel in the morning, and we're talking about how we're going to play. There's about 6 or 7 of us, you know. We're going to got to do this, got to do that, you know. You've got to stop this pillar, Brian Douglas, you know. Make him come on the inside, don't let him go down the line. So. We were talking about all different things like that. And Noel said to me, how do you think we'll do today? I said, we'll win today. He said, you always say we're going to win. So I said, we'll win today. I said, it's a great day. It was a lovely day, sunny. I said, there'll be 50,000 there. I said, great atmosphere. It'll be terrific. So we go there and we play. And I think Harry Hooper scored the first goal for us. It was 1 each at half time. It goes into the second half. And I don't know who scored it. I don't know where Eddie Lewis scored or not. But anyway, we scored. We were 2-1 in front. It was 2 each. It goes into extra time. We're playing an extra time. We're really playing well, and we're on top. We're better than them, you know. It's 2 each. It's 2 each anyway. Long ball went up to Jackie Dick. He pulled it down. He beat Ronnie Clayton on the edge of the box, and he smashed it in the top corner. Minutes to go. Absolute silence on the ground. 50,000. Not a word. And this big docker stood up and went, Bye, Blackburn. You know, that is what you call it, support. And I went home, and I was going home after the game, you know. I thought, that guy was magnificent. You know, what
all on his own.
On his own. We had about 100 supporters there, 49,900 there.
We started having meetings together and looking at our training programs, and as John said about going back in the afternoon, we go back and always practice, just 4 or 5 of us. If you wanted to come back, you're welcome. If you didn't, if you weren't interested, nobody said anything to you. So we became the groundsman nightmare around here, because the ground was always very heavy and tacky. But then we started to look at what times we should train, and whether we should train in the afternoons, late in the week. We brought in the introduction of the guy coming to do weights, some weight training to develop strength, up body strength, or else whatever deficiency he might have. We also got our first physiotherapist who was outside of because our training, the trainer was, as they used to be, just an old player with no qualifications whatsoever. We had a dear old trainer who played in the 1923 Cup final, Billy Moore. And the story is told, and we can all relate to it. If you asked for a massage, you were injured, Billy would have a cigarette in his mouth and he'd be blowing the ash onto you and he'd burn you. Sometimes fellas came out of the middle. So consequently, you decided not to go in there for a massage or anything like that. So we got a fellow called Bill Jenkins, wasn't it? He had a place around the corner here. So we asked Ted and convinced Ted that we should have a full-time physio at the ground, and he was one of the first. We got him to join, and we modified Malcolm again. You know, the strip was drowsy and dull and long
Heavy.
shorts and heavy and big shin pads. So we got away from all that. We decided, there's a story. I remember one time we got a new strip very early in the season, probably for the first league match at home, and it had long sleeves, and as used to happen early in the season, the weather was fantastic. It was in the 80s. So Malcolm decided, Ted Fenton was up in his office, Malcolm decided, he asked Billy Moore for his scissors. So he says, yeah, oh here Malcolm, gave him the scissors. Malcolm cut the sleeves off every shirt. So when Ted Fenton came down and looked, he didn't say anything. He thought, well, just leave him, let him get on with it. So we went out with short sleeves when we should have had long sleeve shirts. Lots of things happened there.
Yeah. Well, we changed actually. We changed the style of football gear. You know, because we wore short shorts, and then we got lightweight boots. You know, and that was when Adidas had just invented the soft toe, and Ted Fenton had a sports shop, and Adidas came over and spoke to Ted Fenton and said, Ted, we want you to represent us, you know, for this soft toe. He said it'll never take off. Never take off, he said.
You just have to get the hammer, didn't you, when you first got there, and hammer the big old hard toes down, just a hammer.
Well,
Then Arthur Rowe, I thought, was one of the first who bought a boot out, and all of a sudden he bought a streamlined boot out with toes pointing down, and the toes were soft, weren't they? And like everybody at that particular time wanted an Arthur Rowe boot. But I mean, the criteria at that time, I don't know whether it's improved. I mean, the criteria to get the manager's job was what, you didn't have to know too much, you had to be a player. And if somebody liked you and fancied you, you could get a manager's job. I mean, I don't think anybody ever used to give team talks or any. I mean, I can't, at the time when I first started in 51, I mean, nobody, I can't remember ever going in the dressing room and somebody standing in there and giving you a team talk and say, well, you do this and you do. You used to get your gear on Saturday afternoons and you used to go out there and play. I mean, we sorted a little thing at him and I, when we played, we
Free
sorted
kicks.
a little thing with free kicks. We weren't aware at that particular time. I was made totally and wholly aware of it when I worked under Ron Greenwood, but we wasn't aware of space, you know, between the ball and players and between two people and all that. All he used to do, my strength was kicking, so all he used to do when we used to get a free kick wide on the edge of the box or somewhere, he used to get everybody back past the far post and leave a big space. And he'd say, that's mine. And then I used to just drop the ball into space and he used to come
I knew where it was going to be. So all I had to do was get across people and get there at the time.
Got
you're
10
wrong.
goals, didn't you?
I always remember we went to Villa Park. I'll remember it for as long as I live. We went to Villa Park and we was losing 1-0 and we got a free kick. And Billy Moore told me, the old Billy Moore who Noel was just talking about, told me the story after the game. We got a free kick on the edge of the box, on the side of the box. And we was losing 1-0 and we got this free kick and he said, Aston Villa 1, West Ham 1. That was before I took the free kick. And I just put the thing in and up, back of the net. We used to do it regularly, but we weren't, you know, we just worked that
Nobody
different
told
thing
us
out
that.
with ourselves and those sort of things.
Well, it's like when you start thinking, you know, and then other thoughts come to your mind, you know. And the good thing about all that, you know, was that Malcolm Musgrove and Frank O'Farrell and Jimmy Andrews, you know, they all used to come up with ideas, and Noel would come up and John would come up with ideas, you know. So the ideas started to build up, and then we'd say, okay, or I'd say, come on then, we go back to the ground and we
Yeah, we
practice
do it.
that, you know.
Yeah.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
And that was how it
And
came about.
we created a method of play by dropping balls into centre forwards.
that's
Whereas
right.
one time people just bashed it down there, and we thought this is the way to do it. Like we used to, it was a bit of a nightmare for poor old Ted Fenton because Malcolm wanted to play football right from the back. Now he was a good passer of a ball. He wasn't quick, but he was very comfortable on the ball. Most centre halves at the time wouldn't accept responsibility, but he wanted the goalkeeper to throw it out to him or throw it out to John. John had passed it square. Well, Ted Fenton used to go spare in the stand sometimes. Obviously we had to make some mistakes, but it was attractive to play. And of course the teams from the north of England used to like coming to play West Ham because you always gave them a chance. We weren't the most physical team, but we were very difficult to beat because we were a useful team of passers. And then we drop it into the Vic Keebler, drop it into the front man, and all of a sudden start from there. So we learned as we went along.
Took an awful lot of years, you know, for people to gain any respect for us from those days onwards.
I think
People used to look at it and used to take the mickey. They used to think we was an easy touch. And in fair dues, in many cases, even though we used to do all these things, we were an easy touch.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
now
we've imparted a lot of knowledge into the game.
Yeah.
Didn't
when you won the second division championship, I only played 6 games that year, and I was at the final game of Middlesbrough last year when they won the Premier the NC League, and there was all the old players from Middlesbrough who played that day, you know, and they were sitting down. And they said, "Mal, your team was different class."
Yeah.
He said, I said, "Well, I didn't play." They said, "No, but that team was different. Like, we thought we were a good team, and they had about 3 England players, you know, and they had a good side. And I mean, Cloughie was there, Peacock was there, Holiday. I mean, Lindy Delafina. They had some real good players.
Yeah.
He said, "But your team was different class."
Yeah. We made quite a few mistakes because one does when you're changing football, as we try to change it here. And Ted probably wasn't a strong enough man to say, "Now you can do this, but you can't do that." And consequently, we went overboard in some of the occasions in our efforts to just, you know, do what we wanted to do. So I think had he been more positive and had he been a little more knowledgeable. But then again, as John said, people didn't go on coaching courses. People became trainers and managers, and everybody's system was the same.
So what was his strength?
Well, I'll tell you one of the things he did. One of the things he did, he said to me, "Malcolm, I want you to train the kids." It was the first time I'd ever seen a player go and train at Charlton or anywhere, you know. And I said, "Okay, Ted." He said, "I'll give you 30 shillings a night, you know, and I want you to take them 2 nights a week." So I said, "Okay." So I went, and there was a bunch of kids there who could really play.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Bobby Moore, Martin Peters, Jeff Hurst,
Johnny Cartwright. Even
Tony
Terry
Scott,
Venables used
Terry
to come
Venables,
down
and
then.
there was all these kids who were all 12, 13, 14, you know. And I used to go and work with them at night
Tuesday
time.
and Thursday nights.
Yeah, and then when I left, I think Noel went and took over. But that was a good thing for those kids, you know. And I remember Bobby Moore. I went out to get the bus home, and I was standing at the bus stop, and he came over. He was about 12 and a half. And he said, "Mr. Allison, can I sit next to you on the bus?" So I said, "Yes, certainly, of course you can." So he sat next to me, and he's asking me all these questions. You know, what's the most important thing about football? So. If you're a defender, you know, I said, well, the most important thing when you're a defender is to know what you're going to do with the ball before you get it, you know. I said, you have to be able to read things. Now, he had a brain like a computer. He wasn't quick, he wasn't great in the air, you know, but I'll tell you what, his reading the game was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I remember I was sitting next to a French international who played in the World Cup. I can't remember his name at the present time. He was a great player, scored a lot of goals.
What, Copa?
Yeah, Copa, yeah.
Raymond Copa.
And he said to me, "You know, Malcolm," he said, "I wouldn't have known Bobby Moore was playing," he said, "till he made that mistake."
Yeah.
Like, he never used to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's how he was. And that was a good thing, you know, one of the
But
good things.
the great thing about him as well is that these are the things after you and after us that I found out from Ron Greenwood. I mean, Ron Greenwood's coaching was simplicity itself. Simplicity itself. I mean, never did defence versus attack or anything. I mean, everything we all used to do was a ball between 2, ball between 3, ball between 4, maybe 5 sometimes. I mean, the simplicity of Bobby Moore was which it took years and years. I mean, I always remember Bill McGarry stating that he didn't think he could play. He thought he was, and he'd played a few times for England at that particular time. But I mean, Bobby never, ever, ever did anything difficult. Never did anything. I mean, if it needed to be played short, he'd play it short. If it needed to be knocked back the keeper, if it needed to be knocked long, he'd knock. His ideas and thoughts about it was unbelievable. But the simplicity of the fellow was the greatness of him.
So
Tremendous.
We had
So this, sorry.
we had one story when I was ill, and Noel was captain, and I come out of hospital and I've been training for about 6 weeks, and Noel was asked up to Ted Fenton's office, go and tell him.
Yeah. Well, I was asked up, I think it might have been the morning of the game or the morning before the game. And Ted Fenton said to me, I've got a problem here. He said, we're playing Man United, which is a first division game. And he said, they've got Ernie Taylor, little fella. And Malcolm, I think Kenny Brown was centre back at the time. Malcolm
I
was
was gonna
playing
play
left
left
half. And, you know, he wasn't as mobile as one would want a fella at left half. But he was very, very willing. And one of the things, Malcolm was very confident. That was one thing, you know, he always had too much sometimes. So anyway, Ted Fenton said to me, Noel, who would you play against Man United tonight or tomorrow? So I just thought for a second. I said, I would play Bobby Moore. So he said, would you? I said, yeah, I'd play Bobby. This was his first game. So Malcolm got to know that I had influenced. And like, he came in the dressing room after and he gave me an almighty volley saying he could have played with his ankles tied and played against Ernie Taylor. And Malcolm never played a first division game.
Yeah, I
you?
did. I played
You
3
did?
for Charlton.
Did, oh no, but not for West Ham.
No.
Not for West Ham. So you know, it was a regret I had for a lot of years after. But it, you know, I thought it was the right decision. It was the right decision.
I think
at
that was
the
the
time.
greatness of the two of them. I mean, they were. I used to know them and be mixed with them, but not as much as those two used to be together.
Yeah.
And they were. I mean, they were great buddies and used to do everything together. And I think that was an absolute unbelievable thing that he did at that particular time. Because the easy thing would have been to say, play
And
Malcolm.
they beat Manchester United as well.
We beat
The
him.
easy thing was to say play Malcolm, and you know, because he's mates. I mean, he used to do us at that particular time unbelievable favours. I mean, there was a fullback named George Wright, for instance. Maybe if I got injured or little things happened and I weren't in, and I used to have a word with him. I didn't used to have a word with Ted. He used to say, I don't think he's playing me on Saturday. Leave it to me. He used to say so, and I used to get in because of Malcolm, not because of Ted.
Yeah.
But you know, it was a difficult thing for Noel to do, but it showed, you know, a lot about both of them, I thought.
Can we talk about that championship side? I mean, you scored 101 goals. Magnificent. You beat Bristol Rovers 6-1, Lincoln City 6-1, Swansea 6-2, Stoke 5-0, and Rotherham 8-0. I mean, it was unbelievable.
I can't remember those.
I could
victories.
remember at Rotherham.
Can you?
Yeah, I think he scored 1 or 2 goals against them, I'm not sure.
No, Dick got 4, Keeble 2, and Smith 2.
I can remember the game as vividly as today. I mean, it was.
It's on the slope. They've got a ground that's on the slope.
Yeah.
And the away dressing room's got a heater in it. And if it's warm, like they used to turn it on this heater, all the players used to sweat from the
But
other team.
the magnificent thing about that, you know, was about the year we won promotion. I think you'll find that we'd played something like 11 games and hadn't got about 9 points or something, if you look at the records.
Bad start.
And Ted went and bought Vic Keeble. And he bought Vic Keeble for the sole reason that he thought he was good in the air. And he thought he would give us a new dimension in the air. And he bought Vic Keeble. And what we found out about Vic Keeble when he came to us was how good he was on the deck. He was his touch, he was one of them players. He never used to touch the ball. If he could touch it half a time, he'd touch it half a time. He wouldn't touch it twice if he could only touch it once. And he used to play balls in, he used to just knock them off and go. And he scored. And I think out of the next 31 games, because we played 42 games that particular year, particular time, next 31 we lost 3. We drew or won 20 of the next 31 games, 28 of them. And we finished up by winning the thing by 1 point or something, didn't we?
You beat Middlesbrough.
Yeah, we beat Middlesbrough.
4-0, you beat them 4-0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last
So-
game of the season.
So
I
was
think
that
it was-
Fenton's strength, really, the fact that he could
Well, he-
spot
well-
a good player?
Well,
Well, I think he bought somebody who he thought was going to do a job for him, a different job, but he found out he could not only do the job he bought him for, but another job as well. And he definitely made it. That was
superb in the air, Vic.
tremendous. I mean, he scored some magnificent goals.
Yeah.
And
And
the
he
two
was-
of him and Jackie Dick worked
And
tremendously.
he fitted
together.
in very well down here, didn't he? He became very popular with the crowd and popular with his colleagues. And great.
Probably with the bookmakers.
But we had a good little outfit. We had like wingers who weren't weren't the bravest in the world, but you had a bit of pace and used to get by people and used to get balls into the box. And if they got balls into the box, you could bet your life that we had a chance of scoring.
Yeah.
You know, if they got them in there to Jackie Dick and to Noel and Vic Keeble, we had a chance of scoring. And Michael Grice would go down. Muzzy had got a lot of pace and had the ability to come inside in them particular days and score goals as well, didn't he, Muzzy? Was good. And I think we had little Johnny Smith, who was, bless his heart, has gone now.
He had his best time there.
Yeah,
He had his best time there.
it was
for
tremendous.
2 years.
Him and I played fullback. We had Brownie, who would head and kick everything.
Yeah.
It was a good, solid centre half, wasn't he? I mean, he wasn't a good. He didn't have the passing ability of Mal or anything like that, but he was a good stopper. And he used to head everything.
Wasn't as good in the air as you know.
No, it wasn't many, was it? No, and there was Andy Malcolm, who was a terrific
Yeah,
tackler.
he was.
Great tackler. One of the best.
Used to laugh at him when he kicked him, didn't he?
Marvellous. I used to love him. You know, he was a great tackler.
Yeah.
And maybe Derek
Good
Parker
balance.
or
Good balance.
Yeah.
Franco
Farrell.
Franco
Farrell.
Farrell, and who else was another wing off? Maybe Billy Lansdowne might have played a few games.
Probably the team was put together a year or two before, although we won it in
Well, it was the
57,
culmination of what
yeah.
you had done, wasn't it? The
Yes.
three of you had done on the training
Yeah,
field, really.
Yeah.
They were at
Vic,
that
Vic
particular
was a
time.
very important.
Yeah, he was.
Johnny Dick played
Yeah.
at Tottenham in the 6th round of the FA Cup. And the ground, it was about that deep in mud. And he was playing against Danny Blanchflower. And he was absolutely brilliant. He scored 3 in the first half.
Yeah.
We were winning 3-0 at half time. And we drew 3 each, you know. Actually, Noel collided with Bobby Smith. And I went out to the winger. It was the amateur boy.
Rob. George
Rob. And he went down our right hand side. And I went out to him. And he crossed the ball. And I looked around and there's Duke winning all by himself. And Noel's laying down there.
That was a goal.
Sick, yeah.
But then we had a row after that.
We did.
I'm not sure whether we were winning 3-2 or whether 3-3. He was offside at White Hart Lane.
I said to him at half time, don't go up the line. I
He
said,
was
"Don't."
offside, right back offside, away from home, and we're drawn 3-3.
I said to him at half time, don't attack anymore, you know, just stay there and just get goal side of the block. And all of a sudden he's played one inside and he's gone for the return and he's broke down in the mud, you know, and the fella's played the ball straight to Rob. I said, you
I always remember they give me some stick at that. we lost our own penalty as well, didn't we?
You know who scored? That game? Tommy Arm scored a header.
Yeah, but when we were talking about Ernie Gregory.
Yeah.
Ernie Gregory was about 6'4", and Tommy Harm was about 5'2", and Tommy scored with a header.
And I'm going, Ernie, what are you doing now?
Yeah.
I would think with you in the and when we were all in the team together, that was probably, I would have thought, for you the most disappointing thing, because we'd gone to Blackburn, as you said, and we'd won at Blackburn, and then we drew Spurs in the 6th round, and we'd had to go to White Hart Lane, and we were 3 up, and I mean, how on earth we never won the thing?
Yeah.
Jackie Dick, as
Was
he
that
said,
the 6th round, wasn't it?
yeah, Jackie
6th
Dick
round.
tore Danny Blanchflower out of smithereens, bless his heart, and we were 3 up, and then we drew 3 each, and then we come in home, we think, we've got a real chance here, and we got stuffed 2-1 at home. We had a real chance of getting to the final that year.
And also because Manchester City got there and they were playing with the sweeper, weren't they?
Yeah.
And I thought, I love that because I'd sorted it all out how to play against the sweeper. You know, I thought, we're tearing to pieces here, like, you know. And we never got through. But I remember a pal of mine, Ray Burns, he was a singer. And he was singing, he was making his debut at Finsbury Empire that night. He's a Tottenham supporter. And he was shouting so much in the match that he lost his voice. He couldn't go on.
Tremendous.
But you were all comrades, weren't
were.
there? There was no recriminations after the game or
No.
anything like that.
I think it's totally different now because obviously the money wasn't in the game then, so we weren't involved in anything else. None of us had a business. Malcolm was the only fellow with a car. The rest of us had to get in buses and things like that. So there wasn't the temptations, and it was just we found it easy because we didn't have the distractions. And I found later on that we talked an awful lot about football. And I remember going to Manchester United and thinking it would be the very same at United as it was at West Ham. It wasn't anything like it. At United, there were very, very good players like the Charltons, like the Violets, like those fellas around. So consequently, they didn't have to work very hard at their game to be successful. We had to work here. We had to have a good method of play. We had to know what we were doing to be successful. They were individually better players at Old Trafford. I remember one time being on the bus talking to somebody about what we were going to do, what we weren't going to do, whether it worked or it didn't work. And Bobby Charlton came on the bus and he said to me, "Noel, you're not at it again. You're not talking football." So that was all one did. That's all we did in the 50s here. So consequently, we all became very, very close and worked for the same cause. So that was where Ted gained the benefit. But nowadays, I don't think that players think deeply about it. You know, they're fitter and better. But I don't think they have to, because somebody else does it for them.
Yeah, because you've got coaches and
Yes,
people
yes,
that do
you've
team
got-
talks and
yes,
tactics.
yes.
It's not left to the players.
And you get all sorts of reports nowadays. You've got people with videos. You've got people with, they go away and they come with reports and tell you what free kicks, what corners, what everything to be prepared for. We didn't have anything like that. We didn't have anybody scouting or looking at the opposition. Somebody would phone up maybe and tell somebody.
Mind you, I must say, the more I look at football today, and I'd like you to know it's not sour grapes, but when I watch it on the box and things, I still don't think that they do too much, I must say. It doesn't appear to
get
me.
many shots on
Don't-
goal.
well,
now.
it doesn't appear to me as if there's an awful lot of coaching done, because they
No.
But they haven't got time
certainly
to coach
appear to
now,
me
I
to get
suppose.
into areas. I mean, I'm not having to go at Terry Venables or anything silly like that, but I from a distance I can understand why England don't score goals. I mean, you ain't never ever going to score goals by keep going through the middle of the park all the time. I mean, unless you get some width in your play and get some balls in from across and behind people, you ain't never going to score goals. If you look at football today throughout, that's still where most of the goals are scored. They'll
But
play.
if he's got McManaman and Anderton, he'll use wide.
Yeah, but they've got to go. It ain't no good having them wide and then them crossing balls from halfway inside their own half and then getting it out wide and coming back square and things like that.
players and get into dangerous positions.
They've got to get into dangerous positions. They've got to get by. That's the great thing now about why Kevin Keegan. I'm not sure Kevin Keegan does. Well, I know he doesn't do too much actual with the lads during the course of the week, but he has now got Gillespie and he's got Ginola who
Brilliant.
get by people, don't they?
Brilliant.
And they get past the last defender and they'll get
You
balls
see,
in.
I don't know whether you feel it, but I do when I watch football nowadays. I think I don't know anything about football because I don't know what they're doing. All right, people are getting behind the ball. How can you leave poor Shearer up there on his own all the time? And how at the end of the day do we have 3 shots or 4 shots at goal in 90 minutes? And that's supposed to be, we've been successful. I fail to understand it.
Can we go back to the '64 Cup final, John? Can you tell us about that?
We were gone then, so you.
Yeah, that was started off strangely, really. Because that involves Blackburn again. Because we used to play on Christmas Day and then Boxing Day, didn't we, in those days? And invariably we used to get a long journey. I remember one Christmas, for instance, I don't know if
We
we
went to
used
Middlesbrough.
we went to Plymouth one day and Middlesbrough the next day. So we had to play at Plymouth and go all the way
Played
to
Middlesbrough
Middlesbrough.
twice, didn't we?
Yeah.
When Cloughie made his debut.
We played Middlesbrough here, and then we travelled up to Middlesbrough in the train after the game.
We played Blackburn at home on Christmas Day, and I think I got to bed about 4 o'clock in the morning, Christmas night, and the kick-off was 11 o'clock the next morning against Blackburn. So you can imagine how I felt. So I got up and I played against a boy named Harrison who used to be at Chelsea, and he went and would catch pigeons,
Left wing, yeah.
could catch pigeons, and we got beat 8-2 at home on Christmas Day, 8-2. So we all went to the dressing room, and you think, now what's going to happen? And Peter Braybrook used to G me up unmercifully. He said, I always remember I sat in the bath. He said, "You're out tomorrow." I was up out of the bath, and they used to put the team sheet on just inside the door. So I'm looking at the team sheet, and all of a sudden I looked at the team, and I was still in. He made one change. He dropped Martin Peters and put Eddie Bovington in, and
Defensive midfield.
we went to Blackburn the next day, and I always remember Jack Marshall was the manager, and it was about West Ham, Blackburn scoring 8, and he said, and there was talk about Blackburn trying to get 16. That was all the nonsense that would be in the paper. So he said, "What about 16? I'll be happy to get 4. This is Jack Marshall saying. We won 3-1.
Yeah.
We won 3-1 and could have won 8-1 ourselves the next day. Talking about what we was talking about, Ron Greenwood said to me before the game that next day, I remember it forever, he Harrison gave me a chase and a ball chase and just kept pushing the ball past me and run. He said, if you can't make a tackle as he gets the ball, just hold off of him.
Yeah.
Make him think. And that's all I did. All of a sudden, he just had to kept crossing balls from in front of me and passing balls from in front of me. It was a massive deal. I mean, whereas the day before I got an almighty roasting, the next day he didn't get a kick. From there on in, we went on and won the FA Cup. And Paul Martin Peters was, from that Christmas Day game, was the only one who didn't play. And I know that always sickened him. But that was how it was, and that was, that was the luck of the draw, really.
How do you assess Ron Greenwood as the manager?